welcome to this episode of Dadnormous. It's John Scott Turco, and I'm here with my good friend Brian Goldrich. Thank you so much for being with me today, buddy.
Oh, my pleasure.
Looking forward to our talk today, and I've known Brian for after Gemma was born.
You can say, approximately 15 years.
So the way I'd like you to jump in, tell us a little bit about who you are and who you are as a dad today.
Sure. Well, you and I met approximately 15 years ago in the city, and we are technically city boys. And I was a city boy up until 2017 when my family and I moved out to Blairstown, New Jersey, famous for the scenes of Friday the 13th. And it's now our home, and it's peace and tranquility. So we left the frenzied lifestyle of New York City for the quiet suburbs, even rural area in New Jersey, and we just absolutely love it out here.
Yeah, you have an amazing place. I've been lucky enough to visit you there, and it's rural. You have some land, and you have quite a bit of land, and
we have chickens.
Space.
We have chickens.
That's all you.
Chickens equals rural, right? I mean, it's enough said. And I don't even know if I showed you this picture. Did I show you the picture of the garden gate door?
No.
I built a garden gate door.
Okay.
Some kid from Queens built a garden gate door. Go figure. Anyway, so we're absolutely thrilled to be out here. It's a beautiful lifestyle, and we as a family are adapting or have adapted, given that it's coming on 3 years here. And that's me.
So you have one daughter, Gemma, and Gemma is soon to be 11?
In August, yes.
August, okay.
Yes.
So if you think about it, if you could take yourself back to almost 12 years ago, can you remember where you were in your life and how you felt the moment you found out you were going to be a dad?
Sure. We all changed dramatically over the course of our lives, especially in the time frame of 12 years, or let's call it, for lack of a better term, a decade. And I was a completely different person at 38, 36. We were, again, living in the city and living the life. We were both working, both had good jobs, making money, enjoying the city life. And specifically as it pertained to having Gemma, we were a family that needed help getting my wife getting pregnant. So this was more of a process than just the intimacy that's required. And so when we found out that the embryo had taken, that the process had taken, it's unbridled joy. It's also a sense of relief. It's a sense of relief because the clock is ticking for women, and my wife and I are close in age, and it was a little bit challenging to have her get pregnant. So at that point in our lives, we were thrilled. This was an amazing phenomenon that we were about to go through, about to live through, but definitely a sense of relief. So this was something that we really wanted at that point, and it came to be, and it was it was amazing.
So if you think about how you felt in that moment, you realized you were going to be a dad. Did you look forward in your brain at that moment to having this person with you and how you were going to be, or you were in the moment at that time kind of being present?
It's funny because throughout my life in every other aspect, I'm always forward thinking, and we all know we can't control what we see in the future, and we should take the present and be present because that's all we have, right? But I think at that point, I was in that moment because, I mean, this is something it's just something that you can't relate to if you haven't been a father. It's something that you have no frame of reference for. So how was I to think I would be a certain way? I just didn't know. Yeah, I also, because people tell me that, I actually just read about this yesterday. The Medicine King, the Bodhisattva, is a body. I think it's a Bodhisattva that if you're this type of person, you're that person that everybody likes to be around. And when you come around, they're all happy, they feel good. And I always, I don't want to sound,
No, I know you
but
a long time, but
enough
you're
people,
definitely, that definitely describes you. I know you a long time. So
right. So I thought in a way, and this will bring fuel to further our conversation, but I thought in a way that being that type of person would translate directly into being a great dad. And I'm not sure that it did. And we can talk about that going forward.
so good point. I think, that's a great point about unless you know in literal sense.
Abstract was the word.
Right.
Abstract was the word I was looking for. It's so abstract. I mean, it's such a monumental, transcendental experience. And if you have no experience, we talk about this all the time. We talk about walking a mile in a man's shoes or a woman's shoes. I mean, even if you walk that same mile, you're not that same person.
Right.
So all these experiences are abstract until you experience them. So I didn't know. Well,
Okay. It brings up a good segue, which is when you turned off the supposition of what it was like to be a dad, to be present in that moment. Looking back, were there things that you are surprised by today about being a dad, or things that you suspected, having not experienced it at that time, that have come to be? So both of those things.
I mean, I don't know. Well, I think excuse me, not the general we, I think I can go back now and thank my parents and understand you now have a frame of reference to how hard parenting can be and actually is. And looking back, I mean, the supposition was that I was going to be this palsy-walsy, great guy, always fun to be around. And I do that. But part of parenting is showing your kids the ropes and teaching them right from wrong. And sometimes you have to lay down a hammer. And I guess I didn't realize sometimes how how
often you were reaching for the hammer?
yeah, how often I was reaching for the hammer, and how like, I mean, how angry we get at times, like how angry we get. And what also is interesting is that these are children. We've all, all of us being dads have, whatever age your child is now, went through a period where they were legitimately children. So let's say preteens. And sometimes you have to remind yourself that they don't have life's experiences, and their developmental levels, their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed, and they don't know. So sometimes, at least I have these expectations, or have had these expectations over Gemma's life that are not realistic. And sometimes I have to go back and downshift, look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, buddy, she's only 10, or she's only 9, 8, 7, so on and so forth. So I suppose it was going to be a little bit easier than it is. And my daughter's great, but sometimes she's not. And sometimes it's hard.
I think that's a simple truth. If there ever was one, that's a simple truth for sure.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday or 2 days ago when you were telling me about the emoji that you have on your phone for JP, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll share this now. And I'm not sure if I think I may have told him, but if not, he'll perhaps see this and know. So
Yeah.
my son was going through his phase. In order to kind of condition myself not to immediately brace for his communication, I changed his name in my phone to his name with a smiley face and a thumbs up emoji.
I love that.
It would like condition me to be like, just take a moment and really honestly take a beat and think about what you just said, which is like, all right, like, it's a temporary thing, and he's a kid, and breathe
Yeah.
through it. And, and as you know, like my son's in his early 20s now, and he wonders about those times. And he's apologized for it, which you didn't need to apologize. It's part of the process. I think it's part of the learning. And Andy Marchenko said something great the other day, which was he wants his kids to experience life around the edges, and not be so curated. And I
In
thought
other
that
words,
was interesting.
what does that mean? In other words, having experiences fed to them, he wants them to be.
Yeah, he wants them to kind of let
Yeah.
them let them go a little bit closer to the boundaries of things and experience what that's like instead of being told to stay so centered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that super interesting. And I think as we said, I think that you just mentioned that there's parts of it that are obviously going to be great and parts of it that are surprising in terms of how tough they are, and it gives
Yeah.
you appreciation for where your parents were in their lives at that point. And
Yeah.
we're at the age now where we can look back and you imagine how old your daughter is, and you
Yeah.
imagine your parents, however old they were.
Well,
uh,
that's the thing, right? I mean, I don't know about your age gap with your parents, but I mean, my gosh, my dad was what? I think he was 28. 28.
yeah.
I was a dummy. I was a dummy.
Yeah.
28, and my mom was 25.
Oddly enough, without planning it, my dad and I and my son and I are 27 years apart, coincidentally. And I find it funny because I am literally the age my dad was when I was my son's age.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting for me to sometimes look back on that.
Yeah, well, we've talked about that too. I mean, you at 27 having a kid.
Yeah. I think about it now, and it's a couple years older than my kids are now, and it seems inconceivable to me, which I'm sure to my parents it seemed inconceivable to them
Yeah.
in many ways. So if you can take now, it's 2020 as we speak right now, the year 2020, and if you think about projecting ahead to 2030, and Gemma's about to turn 21, and maybe you guys are out to dinner, and she's going into her senior year of college, but you're thinking about this. Can you imagine having a conversation with your soon-to-be 21-year-old daughter about the summer or the spring summer of 2020 and where you are as her dad now?
Well, we're living through a time that, I mean, never before. And we talked to Gemma about that now. And I know you're asking me about to reflect on 2030, but we talk about that now and how we're open with her and we say, listen, we've never been through this before. You've never been through this before. We're doing the best we can. Our local leaders are doing the best they can, and who knows where this takes us. I mean, I think the conversation in 2030 is is I really do think it's going to be a hey, remember when, but it's going to be a short-lived conversation. It really will be. I think it'll be like, hey, remember when we had to endure the pandemic? Yeah, we had a great time um, quarantining because we're avid game players and we get to spend a lot of time together and we're focused on the family, on our family unit. We live next door to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. And while we're keeping our distance from them, we still spend a lot of time together. So this has been family time. It's been hyper family time, uber family time. Um, and I think in 2030, we'll just reflect upon how great it was to be together as a family. We'll certainly acknowledge how scary it was
Sure.
and that a lot of folks lost their lives. And I'm sure we'll be able to laugh at quite a few things. Gemma spending hours playing Minecraft, which boggles my mind. But I think in 2030 is apropos of Gemma graduating college is we, and I know Barbara feels the same, we want her to go. We want her, we watch, and I think I've told you this, to watch Somebody Feed Phil. Did I tell you about this yet?
You mentioned it to me. But I
Yeah.
haven't seen the show.
It's a shame. It's a plug for somebody feed Phil. Phil Rosenthal was the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Okay.
And he just goes around to different countries and eats different foods, sometimes from the top restaurants in the world, sometimes from holes in the wall. And we sit here in 2020, and I just look at Gemma and every place that comes up, Paris, Tel Aviv, where else? Mexico City, every place that comes up. Dublin, I just look over and I'm like, you got to go. Just go. And I think the conversation in 2030, and I know you're asking about 2020, but it's going to be, we'll reflect on the past, but it's going to be about the present, enjoying ourselves at that moment and what the future holds. We just want her to go and experience life.
Now, I'm not going to let you off the hook, though. I'm going to ask
Go.
you.
Sure.
So, in terms of how you feel as her dad, looking at your 11-year-old daughter now, if she's watching this in 10 years, and think of it as a snapshot of how you feel as her dad now, when you talk to her, when you look at her, when you're experiencing her at soon to be 11, what can she look back in 10 years at this clip and just know how you are feeling as her dad today?
I feel I'm extremely proud of her. I think she's a really good person. I think she's great. Sometimes I think my mishigas, my nonsense gets in the way of my embracing how great she is, which is not to say that there's this level of linear great that my daughter is on, because she has her moments like we all do.
Sure.
I think she knows how much I love her. I asked her yesterday who picks more of her knits, me or her mom, and that was me. And just because I nag her, it was more nagging. Who's the biggest nagger? And but that's on me, right? That's my nonsense. I think that I think she knows, and I think she'll know how much I love her and how much I adore her and how great I think she is. I think sometimes I let my worry get in the way, and we all want what's best for our kids, and we all know they have to make their mistakes.
There's no right answer to this.
Right, I know. I hope that she knows how much I love her. I think she does, and I hope that when she looks back in this clip in 2, 5, and 10 years,
Sure,
and we're all here watching it together, that she'll know how proud I am of her and how what a great future lies ahead for her. Now she's mixed up in this like all kids these days. It's this video game culture. I mean, we're about to make a deal with the devil and get her an Xbox. I don't know why, but we are. I know why, because she's actually working for the money and she's earned it, which has been outstanding. And it drives me nuts, all this time they spend in front of the computer. And here I am the other day, I had to look in the mirror again and say, buddy, when the Commodore 64 came out, you logged hours playing video games. I mean, what's the difference?
right.
So I just think the world of her, and I think she's got the world at her feet, and she's going to do great things. And yeah, I'm a proud dad.
So I'll ask you to dive into a little bit of what you touched on, which is, how do you imagine going forward and finding that balance between holding high standards and encouraging her to strive for all she's capable of, and still finding that point of being happy and satisfied with the actuality every day?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's a great question, because you'd like to think that you're on a path to meet that balance, whatever works for you. For me, I think I'm doing a lot of work on myself. We talk about the present.
Sure.
This is all we have, and
Yeah,
being
presence and presence.
Yes, correct. And I think the more I work on myself, the more I'll be able to find that balance for me, for her.
Okay, that's a great point.
Yeah. I you know, we know this. We talk about this ad nauseum. It's all about working on ourselves, and then how that, then we're able to. I'm reading the book that you told me. Silence, was it Silence?
Oh yeah, by Tin Chan, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, once you can, well, I mean, all the themes are very similar in all the meditation and presence books. It's like, once you can find that inner peace, right, then you can push it, project it outwards, and you can. So how do I find that level? I don't know. I keep working at it. I think it's a work in progress. I don't think we're. I mean, I'm sure from each of the dads you spoke with and your experiences, there's no level of objectivity to finding that level. We're just going to keep striving for it. And I think I try to practice this, is take a level of ownership, right? Own your part in this, for lack of a better word, production, this play. Own your part, right? How do you contribute to finding that? It's not them, it's what you can control.
You
So,
bring up an excellent point, which I think is something worth pausing and focusing on, which is the attention we have to pay as dads to ourselves in our role in raising our kids. Obviously, you and Barbara and partners of all different ilk, but your role about being her dad, and
yeah.
how does that influence? There's an interesting term I've seen recently, and I love the term intellectual humility, and it's something that I've seen many times about learning and listening and not accepting the status quo as a static point infinitely.
Mhm.
So I think that you bring up an interesting point, which is, how do you move forward and expand your consciousness as a dad and expand your relatability and presence as a dad with your daughter in a way that is going to flow as best it can? And what can you do as a dad to learn about yourself and how you show up every day? And I love that about you. I think that, intellectual humility is, just owning the fact that, we don't know everything. And as you said about the news that you got about being a dad, like, who you were 12 years ago is not who you are today. Who you're going to be in 2030 when you see this clip is not who you are today. So I think that quest for growth, it's alive for you in those moments, is something really important. And it's an important lesson to pass along.
Yeah.
We talk about legacy. And if you think about that, if you think about your legacy with Gems, and you think about yourself, and let's say it's 2040, Gem is 30, almost 31. Brian's almost 67, 68. So if you think about that and you think about your legacy, right? If you think about, let's say it's 2040, let's say it's 2050, let's say Gems has a family of her own and she's talking to her kids about, Grandpa Brian, and reminiscing on her life in total at that point, and how you showed up as her dad. What do you want her to what do you want her to say? What do you want her to feel, know, and live as a result of you as her dad?
Hmm. Well, I would love if she continued my legacy of the Medicine King. I really, it really resonated with me last night, because I really want people to feel that way around me, and I want people to feel that way around her. I hope that she is able to say to her children, you know how when mommy comes into a room and everybody puts a smile on their face, and everybody just loosens their jaw and lets their brow down a little bit, and they just relax a little bit more. That was from Daddy. Daddy made everybody feel good. And I think it's a testament to my dad, because that was a lot of what he brought to the table. And his legacy lives on in me.
Sure.
Um, I want her to know that, because now I'm in a transitional phase. I've been doing some freelance work, and I've worked for a bunch of companies, startup companies, and my wife is the breadwinner in the family, and my role as in part of this family unit is to be a house husband. And especially now with the pandemic, it's been elevated to being a teacher / a caretaker for her. And it's given us an opportunity to spend a lot of time together. And we have great basketball games and races, and we play board games and whatnot. And I want her to know that this was a job. See, I really want to say this was a job I loved, but sometimes I really didn't love it. Sometimes it stunk. Sometimes it was just really annoying. But I do want her to pass on to her children in 2050 or 2040 that Grandpa did a good job. He did a good job. He was my dad, and he did a good job. And that's the role he played has contributed to who I am as a person today, your mother, and he did a good job.
Yeah,
So
that's it. I think also what's interesting is finding the awareness as parents, and in our case as dads, and to own the things that, I really appreciate you saying sometimes it sucked,
yeah.
like, and own the flaws, because and that's not a flaw, that's just observation and reality. But to, people have asked me about the name Dadnormous, and it really came from Joe Narcisso's company, which was called Micronormous, which I just thought was I thought it would kind of flowed together in a funny way. And everyone says it and kind of puts a smirk on their face, which is exactly great for me.
Yeah.
And I think that some of my friends I spoke to who asked me about the channel has said, I don't think I qualify. I'm not, I don't think I'm that great a dad. I'm like, there's no qualification for this. This is
Right.
the channel. I think, we have to, I think part of being real is knowing that we are, and will make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and I'll say wrong, to hold ourselves to this flawless perspective or ideal to shoot for in any respect in our lives. Try our best in whatever we're doing, but to understand that, we're going to fall short. And I think that it also informs our kids. If you've tried your best at something and you're not, you haven't hit the absolute apex, I think the lessons along the way as you strive for improvement and to better yourself and to go forward in life in whatever ways and all ways that you choose to, that's a great legacy and lesson to leave.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that about holding yourself to these standards that maybe are, you didn't say that the standards that are unreachable. I was thinking about, we're probably the first, not probably, we are essentially the first generation of parents to live through this dynamic of social media. And so while there's a level of a challenge for the children that see, oh, she's doing this, he's doing that, I need to be better. We encounter the same challenge, right? You see pictures of your friends holding their kids and taking them to these exotic locations on vacation, and oh my God, I can't be doing as good a job as they are. Look at what they're doing for their kid, right? So this is a challenge that we need to embrace and understand that we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I think back to my dad. I mean, my dad, great dude, great dude. He wasn't, I don't have many memories with him around. My parents got divorced when I think I was 11, and he didn't go away. I mean, he took an apartment across the street, which my mom wasn't too thrilled about. And then he moved to the other part of town, which was what, I don't know, 10 miles away. So he's always accessible. My dad worked a lot, and he just wasn't, I don't want to say he wasn't parental, because he was parental in his own way, but it's strikingly different. It's a strikingly different path that he took as a father than the one that I'm on. And to reaffirm what you were just saying, I mean, we're all on these different paths, and we all have to maybe pick pieces from other folks or what we see online or what we read about, and then add our own little spice and be this nebulous thing called a father, and do the best that you know how.
It's an excellent point. And I think, one of the analogies I was speaking recently about is like, there's no admission test for father. We talked about our dads, and the way that they grew up was quite different. The way that they, were dad or fathers to us was just quite different. I think some of it's just generationally, and I think our people look back similarly and say, you remember when there was that thing, what was it called? Zoom or Facebook or
Right.
whatever, Twitter, and not that they won't be around then, but it'll be what AOL is to us at the genesis of the internet. But I think about it, in terms of the expansiveness of learning and how we can have that as part of the mission. Is that part of it is, forgiving ourselves for making mistakes, for trying the best we can, for modeling, effort. I speak oftentimes about these 7, ideals I work on with clients around the world, which is like positivity, authenticity, courage, action, joy, gratitude, and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can touch on those in our lives and as fathers as well, I think that it's a well-rounded way of approaching how we show up every day. Again, it's an amazing job. It's a tough job at times. We make mistakes and fail. We do great things and succeed. And I think it's an important conversation. As we get ready to wrap up, is there any final thoughts you have as you enter into this 11th year of being a dad, and any final thoughts?
I mean, like every day is a new adventure, right? Every day is a new adventure. And as it stands now, given the current crisis in the country and the world, the adventure is going to be a little bit more adventurous. So and not to mention, I have some health issues right now that are presenting challenges and affect what goes on in our household. And I also just lost my father. So all these things combined are creating this adventurous adventure. And every day is going to be a new challenge. And going into my daughter's 11th year, I just want to continue to grow as a father. I think I'd like to make more of a connection with her. She's got great ideas, and she's able to express them in projects that she's working on. And I think I know I need to do a better job being present with that, being interested in those projects. So I hope that's my goal this year, is to be a little bit more involved on that level with her. And then just to be happy and healthy and enjoy her smile and laugh and continue to watch her grow.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, bud.
If you're new, please subscribe. Check out the other videos, which I'll post around here. And if you have any questions or you want to be part of a future episode, please send me a message. Thanks, buddy.